The Mulembe nation is woke. The Luhya people are on fire. The war between Natembeya and Eugene is on. The fight for the soul of DAP, the party Wamalwa leads, is on. Is this a positive thing? Is it negative? In my view, it is something to be celebrated by the Mulembe nation. It shows that this time round, the Mulembe nation does not want to be left behind in national politics. That the people of the former Western province, and of course Trans Nzoia County, are seriously thinking about national leadership, which is a positive thing. But before we look at the bigger thing, the national politics, let's look at the so-called war between Eugene Wamalwa and George Natembeya. Who can hold the candle for the people of the Mulembe nation? I've mentioned this before, and I've said Eugene comes with the advantage of being a national player. Eugene Wamalwa comes with the advantage of experience, having been minister, having been close to people like Uhuru Kenyatta, the president. A brother to the very loved and liked, admired Luhya son Michael Wamalwa Kijana, former vice president. And therefore, Eugene Wamalwa brings class, almost royalty, to the table. He's no stranger to national politics. Given his previous engagement, international connections should come naturally. Given his past roles, networking that is essential for a presidential candidate comes almost natural. And therefore, if the Luhya were looking for somebody, and this is and they had to choose between Eugene and George Natembeya, Eugene seems to have an upper hand in terms of the traditional way of assessing a leader. But these are no ordinary times. George Natembeya, the governor of Trans Nzoia County, has come up with a revolutionary way of looking at things. His Tawe movement puts him ahead of the queue. He's saying it cannot be business as usual. To a very large extent, he has managed to extinguish the fire from traditional Luhya leaders. Mudavadi, Wetangula, Paranya, and the rest of these Luhya leaders. The Tawe movement led by George Natembeya has thrown them into the dustbin of irrelevance.
Tired of the same old shopping experience? Step into a smarter way to shop with Whiteson Group, Kenya's go-to online store for quality you can trust. From gadgets and homeware to everyday essentials, we deliver convenience right to your door. Fast shopping, secure payments, and top-notch customer care, all in one place. Visit whitesongroup.com today. Whiteson Group, simple, reliable, delivered.
And therefore, whereas Eugene Wamalwa comes with royalty, almost a prince, with connections and network, with experience, Natembeya could easily cancel all that by his popularity. That George Natembeya has excited the crowd is in no doubt. And therefore, if they fight for DAP leadership, and ultimately, as I'll engage on presently, the national level politics, if the choice of who between Eugene Wamalwa and George Natembeya is to be left to the popular masses, I have no doubt in my mind that George Natembeya will sweep the votes and sweep them clean. The Tawe movement has endeared George Natembeya to the entire Mulembe nation. George Natembeya says things that are at the heart of people, things that resonate with the masses. He says the Luhya, who are the second largest community, have never been felt in this country. Not in resource allocation, not in government appointments, not in any serious place. That when you look at the Luhya allocation and order of importance, they come way behind smaller communities, communities that can go into the Luhya community numbers several times over. And yet, when you look at the space these smaller communities occupy in comparison to the populous Luhya community, according to Natembeya, you feel like shedding tears. He has touched the Mulembe nation by blaming our past and current leaders as people who think about themselves and perhaps their stomachs. And this again has found favor with the population. George Natembeya has painted people like Mudavadi and Wetangula as selfish leaders who have no time for the community, who never think about the community. They think about themselves. And this seems to sit well with the population. And so the question must be asked. If the choice is between Natembeya and Wamalwa, and if such a choice be based on the best interest of the community, who then should be the Luhya leader? The answer is obvious. That if we are talking about the interest of the community, and if we have said, given a chance, the community will choose George Natembeya over Eugene Wamalwa or any other leader for that matter, then naturally, the person to be given Luhya leadership would be George Natembeya. And many people, if asked, those who come from Western and others who have watched the Luhya scene keenly, political scene keenly, will tell you on the Luhya table there are only two leaders that Luhyas should now focus on. And this is Edwin Sifuna, the embattled Secretary General of the Orange Democratic Party, ODM, and George Natembeya, the governor of Trans Nzoia. That if Luhya leaders, if Luhya people are looking at leading this country now and in the future, 2027 and beyond, the future of Luhya leadership is to be found in Edwin Sifuna and George Natembeya. So therefore, if we are talking of any choice that involves George Natembeya, it must be against Sifuna and not Eugene Wamalwa or anybody for that matter. And now, let's look at the national matrix to help understand better why George Natembeya may be the person to carry the Luhya flag to the national table. Because like I've said before, many people believe it can only be Edwin Sifuna. And how Edwin Sifuna? Supposing in the final analysis, for example, ODM and Raila Odinga choose to back, for example, Kalonzo. It cannot be for nothing. ODM will back Kalonzo on the understanding that they will, ODM will get the second slot for running mate, ultimately the deputy president. And who better than Edwin Sifuna to represent ODM in that matrix? On the other hand, if the united opposition chooses again Kalonzo Musyoka, for that matter, it will be natural. It will be natural for the united opposition to have Kalonzo deputized by a Luhya candidate. And at that point, you can easily see why it will have to be Natembeya. Because with Natembeya, you are assured of the Luhya vote. Almost mundu humundu. Almost the last person in the Mulembe nation. That Natembeya will have the capacity to mobilize the entire western region, covering the Mulembe nation, the Luhya nation, to vote for Kalonzo for that matter. Truth be told, my work is always to say the truth. Truth be told, if Kalonzo is asked quietly, privately, we are giving you the flag. Put your hand on your running mate. And that running mate has to come from Western Kenya, from the Luhya nation. Because if you do not give the Luhya the running mate, certainly, they will be open to attack from the Ruto camp. And the opposition will not win. So you have to get the Luhya. The Luhya are either going to be presidential candidate or running mate. Kalonzo certainly will put his hand on George Natembeya. Much as he's interacting with Eugene Wamalwa, he must be aware that to keep Ruto out of Western, out of the Luhya nation, out of the Mulembe nation, you'll need a fighter like George Natembeya. In much the same way Ruto settled on Gachagua. Because I've heard many people saying Ruto already had Mount Kenya and Gachagua was just there, that any other Mount Kenya person would have done. That's not true. It entirely isn't true. Ruto needed a fighter, especially that Raila had Mother Karua from Mount Kenya region. He couldn't just have picked anybody. He needed somebody who could take on Mother Karua. A task Gachagua performed very well to augment the support Ruto already had in the mountain. And therefore, this will not be lost on, say, Kalonzo and on Gachagua himself. That if we are going to have a united opposition candidate in Kalonzo Musyoka, we need the Luhya vote. And much as Eugene is one of us as a co-principal and a good person, well experienced, princely, we need the votes. Time for nice guys will come, but for now we need a warrior. We need the Luhya vote, and that can only come from Eugene, from George Natembeya. But what's even more? What is even more? If Rigathi Gachagua, aka man of God, son of Mau Mau, the truthful man, if Gachagua chooses to run, his eyes will fly past Eugene Wamalwa and settle on George Natembeya for very obvious reason. My advice to my Luhya brothers and sisters, to my younger brothers, Natembeya and the rest, go for the big thing. But while you are going for the big thing, be realistic in your choice of a Luhya representative. I will urge Edwin Sifuna to claim a stake at national leadership. I should be allowed to speak as a Luhya. It's quite okay. When I go home and I enter a room and the people in that room are beginning to debate who between Eugene and Natembeya should carry the Luhya flag to the national table, my advice is simple. go for the warrior. We are at war. The Luhya will not be given space on the national table by taking their gentleman who speaks good English. English is good. I earn a living from that. But it cannot be useful in times of war. The Luhya have been ignored for far too long. They must step on the national stage and announce their presence. You cannot announce your presence hivi. You need a man like George Natembeya or Edwin Sifuna to announce the Luhya presence of the national table. And therefore, the struggle of who between Eugene and Natembeya should carry the Luhya national flag in 2027 is to me a non-issue. It shouldn't be there. Let those in DAP, in my considered opinion, support George Natembeya because he's the one with a realistic chance in 2027 and 2032 and beyond. Thank you.